I literally won't be able to hold or like move my arm up without pain. Hey guys, welcome back to my YouTube. Today I'm going to be showing you a workout. I have not done like a workout only YouTube before, so let's go and do a booty workout, and I'm going to give you a whole lot of tips and cues and things that I think about to get the most out of the exercises. If you guys follow me over on my Instagram, you'll know that I always bang on about technique. You can't progress if you don't have good technique, because if you're lifting really heavy weights and your technique sucks, you're going to injure yourself. You're not going to be hitting the muscles in the right way. So if your technique is shit, don't up the weights. How we progressively overload, one way to do that is by upping the weights. Probably my favorite way to progressively overload. So technique is everything. I'm going to run you through some technique cues for all the exercises that we do, and let's go build those booties. In terms of like pre-workouts, I don't take pre-workout. I usually have one, like I'll use coffee. Okay, this is not working with one. Oh, there we go. Yay. So I've just got to the gym and I've got this, I had an injection this morning for whooping cough. So my sister is about to have her first baby at the end of this month, and you need to be immunized against whooping cough. So I had that done. Apparently you get like a really dead arm the next day, so I wasn't actually going to train today, but I was like, well, I literally won't be able to hold or like move my arm up without pain. So I was like, cool, I'll go and train and I'll film it for you guys. So I'm just at the gym now, about to go in. Got some squats. So I have got my squat belt and my squat shoes. These are not mandatory, like you don't need them to be able to squat. They're just something that as I've advanced as a trainer, I've incorporated into my training, and they just help me with my technique and they help me lift heavier. And the shoes are really good for stability and anyone that has ankle mobility issues. And what I mean by that is when you think about your squat, it's a multi-joint movement. So you've got multiple joints moving. So you've got your ankle, your knee, and your hip are moving. So picture someone doing a squat. Say this is their foot and they're coming down to lower themselves into the eccentric part of the squat, which is the lowering phase. If you have ankle mobility issues and you can't, say this is your foot, you struggle to pull your toes back to your shin, like this bit, then you're going to have issues getting quite low in your squat. So if you elevate the heel of your foot, it's kind of like a bit of a hack way to give you more depth and range and correct that mobility in your ankle. So wearing squat shoes, it has a slight elevation in the heel, which allows people with shitty ankle mobility like myself to get lower in their squat, because it just creates more range within the ankle joint. So that is why I use squat shoes. If you want something else, like if you don't want to buy squat shoes because they are quite expensive, you could get little weight plates and elevate your heels, and that will help correct the ankle mobility issue. So with that, it is time to go and train the glutes.
Yeah. You must be blinded by the lights. We came to shine here. Watch it look daytime in the night. We bring the vibes here. We full of life, you keep the change. Keep the change. They hate and say we went and changed. I stay the same. You must be blinded by the lights.
Alright, so first up I did some cable crunches. So I was doing this to activate my core. I don't do a ton of activation work, mostly if I'm feeling any tightness or soreness in any of my joints throughout my warm-up sets. But before doing my squats, I do like to do a series of cable crunches just to get the core waking up and firing, you know, ready to hold itself up for the extreme weight we are about to put it under. Our core is everything. Like if we have an unstable core, we have an unstable body. So activating the core is really key. With our cable crunches, a few technique pointers. One, we want to get into the right position with our hips and our legs. So we want to have a slight elevation with our bum. We don't want to be sitting on the ground. We just want to elevate it slightly, as you'll see in the video. And we want to keep that locked and stable throughout the whole exercise, so that it's just our spine, our core, that's really working throughout this movement. So with our hand positioning, get the rope attachment. This is the best one for range of motion. We want to keep our hands in front of our head, in front of our face. I've moved mine a little bit up and down throughout the movement, but try and keep them in front of your forehead the whole time. This is going to help our spine get into proper flexion, which brings us to the next cue, which is having our spine in flexion, which is like a U shape. So at the top, as our spine opens up, we're really increasing our range of motion here by opening up the spine, and then using our core and our abs to crunch down on ourselves. Another one is make sure you are tucking your chin throughout the whole movement. This is also going to help with flexion of the spine and ensuring we're activating just the core. All right, moving on to the warm-up set. With my programming and all the programming in Train with Soph, I always start with our big compound lifts. So our multi-joint movements like our squats or our deadlifts, our chin-ups, anything that's using multiple joints in the body and is the most taxing on the body and the nervous system to perform. So for all of our warm-up sets, we're going to be warming up doing the same exercise, just with less weight. With your warm-up sets, you don't want to be fully exerting yourself. Like, you don't want to be puffed out of breath. It's not the working out part, it's the warm-up part. It's just warming up the muscles and the joints to prepare them for the weight that we're about to put onto it. So I like to start slow and steady. This is going to depend on how much weight you're lifting, but whether you're lifting 40 kilos or 100 kilos, you should still be doing warm-up sets to warm the body up in the same movement pattern it's about to do, but with weight. So I like to warm up with quite a few sets. It'll range anywhere from like 4 sets to 8 sets warming up until I hit my first working set. So I've started off with just the bar, and I'm doing some paused squats. You can see I'm getting into the bottom and just kind of pausing and really feeling the muscles and trying to wake up the muscles and get that mind to muscle connection for the exercise. And I'm doing about anywhere from like 5 to 8 reps for the first few warm-up sets. And then I start to add weight. This is also when I would add any activations in there. I'm just warming up my shoulders with a few rotations using the stick. So as this is a low bar squat, like I said, we warm up with the same movement pattern we're about to work. So I'm setting up for a low bar squat. I have got the bar position quite low down, as you'll see on my shoulders, and I'm creating a shelf with my delts by pushing my elbows back and locking the bar in. This will push my body forward naturally, and that's okay. With this low bar squat, we recruit a bit more posterior chain, which gives us more force and pressure to be able to lift heavier loads. So bending forward is good. We've activated our core to be able to pull ourselves back up out of the movement. So that's why I like to pair the core activation with my low bar squats. You'll notice as I get to about 60 kilos, I start to use my belt. I want to make sure my core is firing on its own. The belt is really good additional support to make sure you are keeping a tight core. So that's all the belt's doing. It's bracing my core for the heavier loads. So I will do warm-up sets with the belt because I don't want my first working set to be with the belt, and my body hasn't gotten accustomed to using that yet with the lighter loads. So I start from about 60 kilos, depending on how heavy I'm going to be lifting. For this first working set, I built up to 85 kilos for 3 reps. Then we move into our first working set. I've got 85 kilos on the bar and I'm going for 3 reps. I am using reverse pyramid training scheme here. So after I've done my warm up, my first working set is going to be my heaviest weight, so the 85 kilos. Then the next 2 sets following this, I reduce the weight by 5 to 10% and I increase the reps. So you see in the second set, I've only managed 4 reps. I was actually going for 3, 5, 7, but I was feeling a little bit weaker this day, so I made some modifications. The final set, which I haven't filmed, I did 75 kilos for 5 reps. Something you'll notice with my squats throughout is I reset at the top after every single rep. So you'll see me go down into my squat. I'm not speeding down, I'm going quite slow and controlled down, and then I'm firing up as quick as I can from the hole, and then I pause and I take a deep breath in, and I set my shoulders down and push my elbows back. This just resets and gets air into your diaphragm so that you're able to engage your core. I know we're doing a squat and it's a lower body movement and I'm talking a hell of a lot about core, but without a strong core, everything that comes off it is just gonna be loose, and we're gonna be losing power if our core is not tight. And that is why I'm also breathing in every time to fill up my belly and engage my diaphragm to keep a strong core throughout the movement. It just helps me lift heavier and it will help you too, so practice doing that. So take a deep breath in through your nose and hold it, and I tend to hold that for my whole squat, and then when I come back up to the top, I'll exhale and let go, and that's me letting go of being really tight in my core. That's why you'll see me between every single rep doing the exact same thing, and this is how I've really progressed my strength in my squat. A few other tips and tricks, you'll notice I'm keeping my knees out. Something a lot of people struggle with is their knees caving in, which is a weakness in their adductors. Now, lifting heavy is hard, and our body will do whatever it can to compromise to allow us to get this weight up and off of us. So that's why you need to think about, okay, knees out. Knees out is going to activate those adductors. It's going to activate our glutes, which is one of the main muscles we're using in this exercise. And that is going to help us get up and out of the squat when we're really at our heaviest and hardest point at the bottom in the hole. Now we're moving on to our hip thrust. So setting up for the hip thrust, I have got a lower bench because I find I'm able to get a better range of motion with a lower bench. When the bench is too high, you're already having to like crawl up onto it and you're in a disadvantaged position having to start higher up because you're already having to start from the bar being slightly off the ground. So with the lower bench, that'll just take that out of the equation. Notice my spine at the top of the movement. I am creating a posterior pelvic tilt, which is just tucking your pelvis up and under and your rib cage down. This is going to activate our glutes more and it's going to protect our spine from injury. Now, in terms of our setup with our feet, we want to ensure we've got vertical shins at the top of the movement. So if you need to pull your heels in closer to your bum or a little bit further out, whatever you need to do to achieve vertical shins, do that. We also want our toes to be pointing slightly outwards. This is another thing that will help engage our glutes better and driving through the heels instead of thinking about the toes. Another thing that's going to activate our glutes more. Another cue to remember, like we did with our squat, is keeping your knees out. Another thing that is going to recruit more glutes in the movement. And finally, keeping your gaze forward is going to help with our spinal posterior pelvic tilt. It's also going to protect our spine from injury. Moving on to our Bulgarian split squats. So I am doing a warm-up set for every single exercise that you've seen after the squat. I'm doing one warm-up set at either body weight for things like the split squat or with lighter weight for things like the hip thrust. We've already warmed up most of the muscles we're going to be using for all of the following exercises. So just one warm-up set is fine as opposed to the 5 or 8 warm-up sets we did for our squat. So with our Bulgarian split squat, you want to get about a step distance between you and the bench. One really important cue to remember is to slightly lean forward. When we're too far upright, we really eliminate our range of motion with the Bulgarian split squat. So a slight lean forward is going to give us posterior pelvic tilt and it's going to increase the amount of range we get, which means we can get deeper in our Bulgarian split squat, and that's going to be better for overall muscle building and hypertrophy. Something you'll notice as well with the dumbbells, I am holding 2 dumbbells on both sides, but I am putting most of the pressure on the working leg. So the leg that's planted, I've got 1 dumbbell next to me, and then the dumbbell that's in between, I've twisted my wrist from neutral to pronated, which means the palm is facing my body. This just means that A, the weight is distributed over the working leg, and B, it's a lot more comfortable and easier to balance, in my opinion, in that way. So I like to set up by taking a step out, and then I've got my position, and I'll put my foot back behind me on the bench. You'll see that I'm using a bench that has little grooves in it. It's one that's adjustable. I like to rest my foot in the grooves because that helps me with balance. But also when I take my step out, I'm not taking a step out right in front of the other foot. I'm going slightly off center, so I have a greater plane that I'm working in to keep me balanced throughout this movement. Balance can be a really limiting factor for any single leg work, so coming up with ways to plant your feet that's going to help with your balance is also going to carry over to progressing your strength and your hypertrophy with the movement. Next, we have our dumbbell back extension. So these are awesome for the glutes. You will notice that I've got a slightly rounded back. This is again posterior pelvic tilt. This is going to engage my glutes just a little bit more, which is the focus for this workout. I've also added a dumbbell to add extra weight, which is going to help with our progressive overload, which is going to help with our hypertrophy, building muscle and shape. This is how we build our booties. We get strong. We use progressive overload. So I've done my first warm-up set at body weight, and with these more isolated movements, I like to go more higher rep. The glutes can handle a lot of volume and they like to be hit with a variety of rep ranges and weights. So you'll notice that we've got our heavier weights at the start of the workout, and then later on we've got our more accessory isolated work like the extension, and then after this we're going to move into a seated abduction. So with our back extension, you want to set it up so the pad where your hips are is just slightly underneath your hips, so you're able to get the full range of motion and bent all the way down, and you're not limited by that pad being in the way of your hips. What you want to do is grab the dumbbell or a weight plate, whatever you're going to use that's easier for you. You can hold it at arm's length or you can hold it a little bit closer, but it's really important to think, yes, this is called a back extension, but the main working muscle is our glutes here. So put your mind to muscle connection with your glutes. Think about driving your hips into the pad, and it's your glutes that are pulling you up and out of this movement. Also think about your posterior pelvic tilt. So tucking your rib cage down and tilting your hips up is going to create a bit of a C shape in our spine, putting our spine into extension. So this is going to help us engage our glutes more in the movement. Something else you'll notice is my feet. So a way that we engage our glutes more in this movement is by angling our toes outwards. The same applies for the back extension. You'll notice that my feet are angled slightly outwards, and I just feel this so much more in my glutes when I angle my feet out that way. Moving on to our final exercise, which is the seated abductor machine. I love this machine for burnout, but I know that a lot of people struggle to feel their glutes working in this. Something that works for me is sitting a little bit forward and again angling my body forward, because I just find I'm able to open up my hips so much more and get greater range of motion. Also doing a few things like pausing when our knees are all the way out and being a little bit slower on the eccentric on the way back in. Some people really respond well to lighter weights and higher reps. Others respond better to heavier weight and lower reps. So we're kind of going to work everything here. We're doing a drop set. Now what that means is we start with our heaviest weight, and we want to go for around 15 to 20 reps. Like we want to fail at that point. And what I mean by failure is we've done so many reps that the muscle is just like forgotten how to work. It's just like, I don't even know like what I do in life. So I've forgotten how to work. I can no longer move in this same movement pattern. At that point, we want to drop the weight down by 2 or maybe like 1 to 2 plates, depending on how heavy you've gone. I think I started with like 150 kilos here, so it's pretty heavy. So I'm dropping 2 plates every time. So all we're doing is dropping weight. We are not resting. We're not changing our position or anything. We're doing the exact same thing, but we're just going less weight, and we're still going to failure. So the next round, you just as many as you can until you fail. Drop 2, as many as you can until you fail. Do that until the whole stack is done. Drop sets are awesome for metabolite work. So we're aiming to achieve progressive overload through fatiguing the muscle. So drop sets and rest pause sets are my favorite things to finish every workout with, because you just feel it burn out. You should really feel your glutes firing throughout this whole workout. That's it from me, guys. I hope you enjoyed my YouTube this week covering glute exercises with all the tips and tricks. If you did like this style of YouTube, let me know. I'll make sure I do heaps more for upper body, lower body, whatever you guys want to see, just let me know and I will make it happen, because I got you. I will see you guys really soon in another YouTube. I hope you enjoyed. Please make sure you subscribe. If you want to not miss any of my future videos, turn the post notifications on, and I will be back very soon. See you then. Mwah.